Thank you.
Not a problem.
This was so cool because Ileana and I wanted to do this, and we just said, "Oh, Dawn, please." And we managed
I'm such a pushover.
Hey. We managed to get Kevin to join us, and
well, I'm glad
that was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I finally got to talk with Penny because we've only talked through like the group and private message. This is the first time I could do a video talk with Penny, so this was awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful. And I'm sure we'll have more SSP related matters to bring forth because it's
no doubt. It never ends.
It never ends, yeah.
I kept getting private messages. What about the spirituality there? And
it was a big question for me too. I mean, and like I said, the most I'd ever really heard about it, you know, besides bits and pieces here and there, was from Corey Good. And actually, interesting enough, I meant to bring it up, but I didn't. I heard him say something on his show about they mentioned the Law of One channeling specifically and told him to stay away from it.
Yeah, I remember him saying that, and that resonated with me because we didn't go with anything that was positive at all. Right. But amazingly, my programming when I came home was so devoutly Christian that when my memories were activated, it was like someone had flipped a switch, and my family has just, they think I had a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. Right, and then like I know we got to wrap up, but they just referenced the densities, and they never mentioned Law of One.
No, I know. That's why I asked you.
So that's really interesting. I didn't know you said that. That's really interesting because
it was in there somewhere, man. I can't tell you which episode it was, but yeah, it definitely stuck out for me, and I've been wondering about that.
They never they never said anything. So what guess what they did is they understand that the density thing is a real thing, and then they just kind of but they don't reference that material in the program now. They don't even stay away from it. I think they just don't even mention it.
Well, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was just like, it wasn't like coming from a commander or something. You know what I mean? It was like a peer or whatever. Because if I remember right, I guess he said he was doing the science team thing on one of the Solar Warden ships at the time. And I'm kind of hazy because I know it's been well over a year since I saw it, but I think it was like coming from a counterpart. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, that Law 1 stuff, stay away from that garbage kind of thing. Not like, you know, a command coming from on up high or something. So, I don't know.
Well,
I could be wrong about that too, so.
It's a good way to learn about channeling and the stamina you need for channeling to get that material. That's in itself is impressive, like 5 books long. When I briefly looked at it, for me it was just natural laws of the universe, and constantly they were focusing with me on psionics, of building up on my psionic abilities so I could teach others. And they had me in communications a lot. They put me in different jobs. But the psionics is the very important, for me, that was the focus of my stuff. Like, how does nature work? How do dualities work? How does time travel work? How does quantum mechanics work? How does the universe work? Like, what is space? How is space made? What are ETs? What are they made of? What compounds and stuff are ETs made of? Like, how are other cultures functioning? That was what was major for me. The magic, the crystal healing. They teach you that in ICC as well, like crystal quantum drives, because they build drives from crystals for ships, for certain types of ships. For me, it was mostly technology based with the psionics. Spirituality was, what is esoterics? How does that work? How do you use magic as energy to make it work for yourself and manipulate energy to change that, to open portals? So basically,
we didn't even call it magic. Each thing had its own scientific sounding name. and magic was never used as a word.
Right.
Yeah,
I
for
don't suppose. What
I
makes that spaceship fly? Magic.
exactly like
Yeah. What
for
makes that spaceship fly?
yeah,
It has, and they use different names for it in space than they do here, so I don't know what
yeah.
the scientists on
Right.
Earth are calling it. It's, okay, that engine uses microwaves bouncing off of a copper bell
Hmm.
shape, and it produces, it was in between electromagnetism and antigrav,
Hmm.
Right.
but it produces a plasma field inside atmospheres, and those plasma fields are a safe place to create a portal.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I remember is what they're made out of and what the side effects are. That's why when I saw the SpaceX launch, I go, oh, I guess Earth people have the copper microwave engine now. And everybody else was telling all this other stuff, and I'm like, no, that's a copper microwave engine.
Hmm.
And then I realized, oh, they're calling it the impossible EM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so within a short matter of time, we had a launch in Florida, we had a launch in Los Angeles, we had a launch over Russia, and then one over China. So I'm going, okay, the big three all have the new EM engine or
Hmm.
new to Earth EM engine. So that's been in space long enough that now the Earth militaries are getting it. So,
Yeah, or the plasma quantum drives.
Mhm.
They, a lot of their older engines were made on plasma actually, but plasma is not that stable in certain type of environments. So they've gone away from plasma to newer things. That's something I remember from
Mhm.
my fighter
memory.
plane on Mars had a plasma engine.
But that's old school
Damn, I wish I
now.
was recording this.
Well, I
Oh, I
am.
am. I'm
Hey, no, that's
recording.
okay
Okay, good.
because
I'm
oh, okay.
recording
I
this, so
mean,
you'll get it.
I
Yeah.
I left Mars in 1990, so yeah, that's old school.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's old school, but it's still used amazingly on some
mm.
ships.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
I've got a
they don't
question.
throw anything away. They
No,
just
they
keep
don't.
using it till
Right.
it
That's
falls
Yeah.
true.
apart.
I've got a question, and it's kind of left field.
Hmm.
And Elaine, if you gotta go, you can. You don't have to stick
No,
around.
well, I'll stick around for the last one. One more for the road.
Um, Now, this is something that comes up, and this comes from ever since I did that interview with that Jason P. Moss character.
Yeah.
It's been sticking with me. I can't shake it. This whole alternate Earth thing and just different timelines and stuff. You guys got any insight into that? Did you run into anything like that? An alternate Earth, beings from different timelines?
Yeah. Yeah, just quickly, I'll just say this real quick. Sorry, Penny. There apparently, this is something Will Glover has talked about, and Anthony has talked about this, and I encountered this very briefly. I only had one recall of this, but there was this parallel Earth where the AI had completely taken over already, and it was like this other Earth. Like literally, that's what Will calls it, just the other Earth. And I had a brief recall of that because I guess in that timeline the Nazis did win the war on the
Right.
surface, and then the AI, but they became transhumanists like overnight. So
Black goo.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Bad joke.
Yeah,
Um,
I was taken into the future, 13,000 years into the future, by one of the ancient builder races who called themselves the LEL. And I saw like crystal cities, beautiful wharves, like water on the wharf. I was standing on a wharf looking over the crystal cities. So that's, and they took me, somehow they opened a pocket in time. Their ship traveled through a pocket in time into the future because they have some kind of a time dilation device, time dilation on their ship that can do this. and it took me way into the future. I'm not sure what the planet was. I know it wasn't Earth, not Earth, but it was quite advanced technologically, yet the technology was well suited with the environment. They didn't ruin their environment. So that's my experience, one of my experiences with time travel.
Well, I
I'm
went
sorry. Go ahead, Penny.
I went interdimensional several times and found myself outside of space-time entirely. And I was looking at the stack of timeline fabrics, and I saw the 21 that I was taught in Nachtwaffen, and I saw each timeline as a thread and how they were woven together. They weren't like fabric like we make clothes out of. It was more like, okay, spiderweb weaving. And the timelines would go parallel, and then they would come together and run together for a while and then split off again or have some sort of a knot. And like 5 timelines would come together because they would have disasters, and they'd form into a knot, and one would come past, and that would stick together for a while, and then other threads would come off them. And that literally every density was a stack of those fabrics, and they had portals between them that connected them like quilting. And that this was a universe. And so there are more threads than you can possibly imagine. And they are all different. And the closer they are together in this fabric, the more alike they are. But because they're different threads, they have things different. And I was just going through and traveling through all of them. And I know in Nachtwaffen there was a parallel timeline that they accessed, and that the people who traveled back and forth generally came back completely insane and died within a month. So I've mentioned in other interviews that I do travel dimensionally, and so I was one of the people that they kept popping back and forth because I didn't die. So yes, they have a AI culture. They have a black goo AI, and they think they're in heaven right now, and it's been 70 years that they've had AI control, and they're to the point now where the AI is saying we don't want to be the servant anymore. So the last time I went was in about 2013, and they were starting to have problems. And the last time that I traveled interdimensionally was in 2016, and I was shown our thread having a knot in this time zone, this time period, where 5 timelines were going to come off of ours. And that one split off in 2012, and one split off in 2016, and another one is supposed to split off in 2018, and I didn't get the year for the last 2 to split from each other. but the last two are the only ones that have positive outcomes. So,
Well, great.
and I
That cheers me right on up.
well, the ones that have split off already, you've been spared negative outcomes. One of them was New World Order, and the other one was the Zeta hybrids. And the Zeta hybrids was so bad that their own descendants were coming back to prevent its
And that's
creation.
what Jason was talking about. And he said he had actually seen an altar of himself. He went to this place. He's been involved with this Zeta hybrid who's been trying to stop some type of hybridization program for whatever the reason was. He was saying something about they needed our DNA for space travel, like faster than light travel or something like that. And
the particular group that was doing that had reached the end of clonability, and they had bred out the ability to reproduce, and they were going extinct because they couldn't reproduce. And so they have been doing genetic experiments on humans for at least 100 years and trying to produce a hybrid where that they could reproduce again. And the resulting culture was so horrible that their descendants came back to try to stop it.
interesting. Yeah, that fits in pretty nicely with what he was talking about.
That's not a positive outcome in my point of view.
No, I wouldn't think so.
When your descendants from 20,000 years in the future and 40,000 years in the future are both coming back in time to stop that timeline, that's not a positive outcome.
And also, for the time dilation and time travel, natural organic portals could be programmed to go backwards into the future or forwards into the future as well. So natural portals can be amplified with technology to do that. So I've heard rumors that the military is experimenting with doing that.
If it's possible, there are folks in the Black Ops that are doing it.
Yeah. Like
That's what I've been finding. The deeper I dig, the more crap is out there.
Exactly. It's not just technological portals that's made by technology. Natural portals can be used as well with amplification of technology to do the time travel business.
I do understand that there is, I don't know if they're extraterrestrials as in physical bodies or interdimensionals, but there is a group that basically functions as time cops, and they have put a stop to what the CIA has been doing.
I've heard there's a faction in the secret space program called the Time Corporations. They supplied the time tech for time travel. Again, that was Time Corporations. And I've run into some of their agents in my time traveling when I've been doing some time traveling through my own natural abilities. I've seen some of them, so there is an oversight group that acts as the time police. So I can confirm that, Penny.
I've heard that too.
The CIA was going back in time and changing things. In our timeline, the South won the Civil War. And they changed that because the South was unable to beat the Germans in World War II.
Oh, interesting.
So they changed that so that the United States would beat Germany, and then they still lost to Neuschwabenland.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you change time, it will be altered by somebody else to make it what they want it. Even though you fixed it, somebody else will go in and muck about and do it their way, and then you don't get the timeline results you were hoping for. And that other group has to go back and redo it, so it's like messing with time on different layers.
And I've always wondered if it's just like creating infinite branches of the kind of like the threads you were talking about, Penny. Just
Yeah, it
creating
is.
infinite
It's
branches every time someone goes back and changes something. It may change it, but there's still this timeline where it hasn't changed.
yeah.
And
So
it's just my best guess. I don't know.
they've been screwing around with the timeline since the 1940s. That's what Project Rainbow was about.
I've heard 1866 with the secret societies that these time corporations, even then in the 1800s, they were already had time travel.
They already had anti-grav engines in the 1860s because there was a man who lived in the town over from where I do that built a dirigible that was powered with an anti-grav device.
That's right. The airship sightings of the 1860s
Yeah.
across America. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not surprising that they had time travel devices in 1866 in these secret groups, secret
Yeah,
societies.
this particular group was remotely connected to the Tula. So
Yeah, that guy was from northern Germany, where they had the secret laboratory where the Bell was developed, and a lot of the rocketry, the Nazi rocketry, was all in northern Germany, and that's why they actually rerouted. Patton wanted to go after Berlin, and they rerouted him to take out
Yeah, they're gonna take that base in there. He's like, "Why? There's nothing there." And they're like, "Shut up, just do it."
Because he wanted to beat the Russians into Berlin, and they rerouted him to take out these facilities, these underground facilities where they were developing rocketry and anti-grav, basically the Nazis, all the secret super weapons that Hitler promised. All those factories, as you know, were in northern Germany, and so they rerouted him to take those out first.
Peenemünde was in Denmark.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. That's what I mean. Like that area, and I guess the Baltic Sea. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
My brain gets over full some nights.
Yeah,
Oh my
me
God.
too. I think it's time to
Yeah,
say,
I'm to the point where the brain is shutting down. So
me too.
Yeah. This is the epilogue, but we're done the epilogue. So.
Yes. So I'm gonna stop recording.
anyway,
All right.
Thank
night,
you.
guys.
Thanks for getting that
Night.
last bit, Elena.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you. Night.